And I'm really sorry for changing the time. It was scheduled at 5, but we have to reschedule it at by 6 o'clock again. Okay, guys, let's begin the session. Once again, everyone, good evening, and I hope my voice is audible. And if it gets disturbed, please let me know. Are the slides visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. First of all, let me introduce myself to all of you. Hi, it's Sangeeta Verma, and I'm residing in Kathmandu, Nepal. From there, I'm getting connected to all of you with the platform Learn of It, and we should really thank to them. So in this I would like to say that I've done my MBA with banking and finance and MPhil in management. In this slide, you can see my work experiences with different industries in different years. But currently, I'm associated with an import-export company, which is a very good company in Nepal, known as Kedia Organization as a DCM, and it's my 7th year. Apart from this, I would really thank to Learnovate as I'm associated with them as a freelancer. Thank you, Learnovate, for providing such a wonderful platform to get connected with different peoples, right? Different, you can say, areas of the people. Thank you so much. So, guys, today's session in finance, the topic is very really we always hear it. Shares and debentures is completely involved with the financial market, which we finance friends keep on going knowing about it. And in the session, we'll learn, like after the session gets complete, we'll have a knowledge, we'll acquire a knowledge with the meanings of share, share capital, types of share, advantage, disadvantage, how the shares are issued, what's the meaning of a debenture, types of debenture, then advantages and disadvantages, along with the differences between shares and debenture. So here we shall begin the session. So we should understand that we know that company is categorized into one is public and another is private. So companies, we say companies, public company or private company, they always need certain amount of capital either to increase their productivity or to increase their market reach or even to diversify or to purchase different latest modern equipments required for their companies. And for such requirement of fulfillment, they go for the different shares, and from that the basic share which they go is IPO. And if they have already gone for IPO, then they go for FPO, follow up on the process. So the only thing they do in either IPO or FPO is to sell the shares and debenture to investors. Investors, you can say that the term investor here represents retail investor, financial, etc. Those who can provide them certain amount of capital and get associated with them, and as a, you can say, a term of ownership with that particular company. So whether they issue shares or debenture totally depends upon the concerned company. So the framework understood, right? Why these shares and debentures are required. So what is shares? One of the equal part into which a company's capital is divided, entitling the holder to a proportion of a profit. It is divided into a number of individual units of a fixed amount. Like I want to suppose take an example that I want to collect certain amount of capital for a company which I am going to start. So I might not have a complete finance arrangement. So what I'll do, I will make try to sell in a way that of my company's ownership to different people with a percentage requirement, like to some 10 shares, to some 20 shares. Those who will have higher range of shares will be accompanied to the as to the company as a owner, as an owner will be treated as an owner, but actually who is running, the actual company owner is running the company, but with the help of sales and venture, that particular person or that particular company is able to collect certain amount of fund capital for their companies. So share capital, what is share capital? The part of the capital of a company that comes from the issue of sales. Obviously I didn't had suppose I wanted to open a company, I have only 50 lakhs, but 50 lakhs more is required. So what I'll do, I'll sell certain shares to private or public people, right? Different private companies or to the general public for the collection of certain amounts, certain funds, which will be as a finance for my company opening, right? So that is known as capital, that is known as share capital. So that might be authorized, registered, or nominal capital, issued capital, subscribed capital, called up capital, paid up capital, and reserved capital. So the capital categories also gets divided. The way how we do, whether we do by just selling shares or debenture, or we are selling share debenture together, or in the shares also we are doing IPO or other shares categories. So as per that, the share capital is also categorized. Till here, any confusion, guys? Okay, so let's go for another slide. It's types of shares. So shares are basically divided into two categories: equity shares and preference shares. And in the preference equity shares also there are certain categories, and in preference shares also there are categories. So what is equity shares? In the equity shares we should understand that here, sorry, the holders of these shares are the real owners of the company. Equity shareholders are the real owners of the company. They have a voting right in the meeting of holders of the company. They have a control over the working of the company. So equity shareholders are paid dividend after paying it to preference shares. You know that in this equity shares are control over the company increases out, and they are paid dividend after preference are done, because equity shareholders, they just don't get dividends, but even they get certain profit sharing ratio also. So equity shares are actually acting as a owner of the company. Whereas preference shares more commonly refer to a preferred stock, as shares of a company's stock with dividends that are paid out to shareholders before common stock dividends are issued. So if the company enters bankruptcy, the shareholders with preferred shares are entitled to be paid from the company assets first. So you can understand over here that preference shareholders do not act as the owner of the company or do not have a control over the company running or cannot vote for the company. But equity shares can do that. So since the preference shareholders do not have that right, what happens is if a company goes to the position of bankruptcy, they get they are supposed to get their funds back by either taking loan from others from that company or selling out their valuable assets and providing the collected fund for the source of preference shares. So these are two equity shares and preference share. And in equity shares also there are three categories. That's right share, bonus share, or sweat equity shares. So right shares are the shares issued to the existing shareholder of a company. And such kind of shares are issued to protect the ownership right of the investor. It means that suppose you are already shareholder of that company and again the right share has been issued to you only, so you're getting double series of shares, and in that way it's like for the security of company's ownership. They do not want to sell the right shares to other. They want to share those shares to the investor who are prior investors to the companies. That is known as right shares. Now comes bonus shares. These are the types of shares given by the company to its shareholders as a dividend. Like they get certain percentages of dividend or certain percentage of profit sharing. That is bonus share. When it comes with the sweat equity share, these shares are issued to exceptional employees or directors of the company for their exceptional job in terms of providing know-how or intellectual property right to the company. So we should understand that those these shares are given or provided to those shareholders who are already the exceptional employees of the company who are helping out in the booming of the company, making it to collect more funds or getting to the profit increment. So such candidates, such people who are actually utilizing their intellectual skills and knowing how to handle those things, what can be the proper property rights up to the company, to such employees, to such directors, to such investors of the company, sweat equity shares are given. There are more there are more in equity shares that blue chip shares, income share, growth share, clinicite share, defensive share, and speculative shares. But when we go with equity share, mostly we go with the three types, that is right share, bonus share, and sweat equity share. So equity shares clear to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
And okay, then in preference shares are basically with the four categories. Like in preference shares, people all those who are a shareholder, preference shareholders of the company, they are given dividend. They are even percentage of dividend is given to them. Means if the company is increasing the percent way, they have promised to the investor that if you invest certain amount in our company, this percentage of interest type of that is called dividend in a financial terms. Interest or dividend will be given to you. Sometimes even companies who acquire huge amount of profit, they collect profit from the business they have done. So few companies even like to distribute the participation in profit also for the preference shareholders. It's just not that they are giving dividend, but even they share certain amount of profit ratio also. But whether we are going to share the profit percentage with the preference shareholders or not, that is prior promised and informed while distributing or giving out preference shares. And even redemptions are given, and then convertibility. So these types of four preference shares are given. But in a financial market, when we go with the preference shares distribution, mostly the companies prefer dividend and the participation in profit sharing ratio. So preference share also clear to everyone. Can we go to the next slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now let's understand the advantage and disadvantages of equity shares. If you go with the equity shares advantage, high return, easily transferable. Like it means that suppose uh, let's take an example that some Mohan is the shareholder of particular company, and he or she wants to sell or sell the shares to his son or daughter, or even wants to make the equity shareholder to family members, friends, or other colleagues. That is possible. So easily transferable, or even inside the companies to other investors, that can be done, and high return on it. This can be easily liquidated. Suppose I don't want to be a equity shareholder in a certain company, and I can sell out or easily transfer my shares to other investor and collect fund from them. That cash can be possible, liquidation is possible. Right to vote, right to choose the board of directors. Equity shareholders have the right to oppose any of the decision taken by the board of directors. So these are the advantage, and disadvantage is very high risk, because it's completely that if a company is on a profit, you are getting these percentage sharing. If you are not, the company is not on a profit, you are losing even though. But you cannot say that I don't want to share loss in it. No, it's not that, because you are also acting as a owner of the company. In worst cases, less privilege given to equity shareholders. If you see in worst conditions, less privilege, because though if a company goes to bankruptcy, preference shareholders are given more priority. With provide the return them their fund anyhow, whether you take a loan or you sell out your valuable assets of the company, that is there. And when that is given, then only the preference is given to equity shares, because you people have a equity share people have a investor have a right to vote, right to choose the directors. So your equity shareholders rights are higher than preference shares. And now advantages of preference shareholders. So dividend at a fixed rate or a fixed amount, or preferred shares before any dividend or equity shares. Like if you took preference shares, say that 5% will be given, that will be 5% only. And if it is say that in 3 months, 6 months, yearly, how it is, how it's the company has promised you, how much percentage they have promised you, that is fixed, and that in that way only you'll be given. And return of preference share capital before the return of equity share capital at a time of winding up of the company. Because you, since if a company is winding up, obviously preference shareholders are given more priority, because they are supposed to return their cash back. Now it's a hybrid instrument having some of the characteristics of debenture and equity shares. Disadvantage is they do not provide the investor with any of the voting right. If the company gets huge profit, then they won't get any extra bonus. That is there. So advantage and disadvantage of both the shares are clear to all. Let's go to
Yes,
next.
ma'am.
Now issue of shares. How a company prepares to issue the shares. First, what they do is they make a prospectus, means detail of a company as shares in prospectus. 90% of application is necessary. And then if it goes to application, if access application received, then company issues shares by pro rata basis. Full amount can be called up by company at the time of application, or it can be paid up in installment also, and that is allotment. And when it goes to repayment and dividend, share of the company may be issued in any of the following three ways: at par, at premium, and even at a discount. So what happens? You should understand whether the whenever the companies issue share, what they do is they publish in newspaper, they run the scrolling on financial market, they provide the details of the company, they even provide the information which type of share they are selling, or whether that is equity share or a preference share, how they are going to categorize. Suppose you can all a person can only request for 10 shares or as much as shares you can, so that all those categories are over there. And first the application is given by an applicant who wants to receive the shares. It depends on the company's choice whether if you request for 20 you might get 10, if you request for 100 you might get 100 also, or you might only get 20 also. So that depends in that way, allotment is like that. And then and then at the last, how the repayment will be done to you as on a behalf of investing certain amount directly or indirectly in a company. So that repayment and dividend is with the par, premium, and discount. Issue of share for consideration other than cash. For example, issue of shares to vendors, to promoters, etc. How it is. Forfeitures of shares are done. They show the calculation how it is, how much percent. Buyback shares, chances are there or not. Right shares, and then redemption of preference shares and debentures. So it's completely they make a proper plan, proper project whenever a company issues a shares. And basic, there's a calculation, basic earning per share calculation. Sorry, basic earning per share is net income of and then minus preferred dividends, which is divided by weighted average common share outstanding. This is a formula, and now we'll see how the calculation is done. So till here, any confusion, guys? Let's see the calculation. Suppose take an example. If a company X has 1 lakh equity shares and 50,000 might be the preference shares, right? So 10% is cumulative preference shares from 1 lakh. The company has reported a net profit after tax of rupees 5k for the year ended March 31st, 2014. So what is the profit? Profit is how much? 5 lakhs. Outstanding equity, if you say it is 1 lakh, right? So while using a formula, net profit is 50,000, and if you calculate the preference dividends, that is clearly mentioned that it will be 10 percentage. So you go with the 50,000, 10% of 50,000, that is 5,000, right? And number of equity shares, total number of shares, which they said that they will be issuing, but the allotment is done only of 50,000. Over here, we have to understand like this, and this should be divided by 1 lakh. So it comes out 4.95. So what is the basic EPS earning per share is 4.95 rupees. In one share, you get 4.95 extra. Calculation clear to everyone? The formula understood? And
Yes, ma'am.
when you get the shares, the companies provide you, some few of the companies, you can say most of the companies actually, they provide you the certificate that you are a shareholder. Which type of shareholder? Whether you are equity shareholder or you are preference shareholders. So the information is given in that certificate along with your name and your information in that certificate. And while you wind up, or while your you are transferring, suppose if you are equity shareholders, you are transferring it or you are making liquidation to your shares, at that time you have to submit it. And if your preference shares, when your tenure time gets over, that the company have issued a share for 5 years, so till 5 years you have to keep your certificate safe. And when it's ended, at that time you can submit it. Or what you can do is, the third thing is, when the share price is higher and you are interested to sell out your shares. Even preference shares can do that, okay? They can transfer it. So that is in that way, and at that time, share certificate is very important. So related with the shares, it's here. Now let's understand what is debenture. A debenture is a medium to long term debt instrument used by large companies to borrow money at a fixed rate of interest. A dividend is thus like a certificate of loan or a loan bond, evidencing the fact that the company is liable to pay a specified amount with interest, and although the money raised by the debenture becomes a part of the company's capital structure, it does not become share capital. Okay, so over here, debentures are mostly for long terms. It's like for a year or 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, so long term association. And at that time, it is understood that the company has taken loan on the base of debentures. Suppose you can understand the best examples are banks. You purchase a debenture or you purchase a form of share which is a debenture actually, which gets associated for long terms. It's like a loan process, and the fund collected with the sell or issue of debentures are called as capital structure. It does not become share capital. Clear to everyone? And there are different types of debentures on the basis of security, redemption, recourse, convertibility, priority. So the debentures are categorized in different category with the security, mortgage, unsecured, first and second mortgage, redemption is redeemable, non-redeemable, then records, registered, non-registered, viable, then compatibility, convertible. Can you can convert that those debentures on shares or non-convertible, or you cannot convert it. You can liquidate it or you cannot liquidate it till the time or tenure gets over, till the maturity period is over in the debentures. And then priority, fixed or selective. And what are the advantages of debenture holders? They are the fixed source of income. Every month, every year, you get a certain amount, certain percentage, which is promised by a company as a fixed source of income. It's a safe investment. And when it is safe investment, when you do a proper research while purchasing the debenture of any company or share of any company. Definite maturity period. So it has a maturity period till the time you cannot convert it. It's like that. You cannot liquidate it. You have to wait till that time. So it's a particularly, you can say, a sort of fixed deposit or a loan taken for certain periods. And what's the advantage? You do not have any voting rights, and creditors not the owners. You are actually not the owners of the company. You are the creditors towards the company. Now, what are the differences of equity sales and preference sales? Basis of differences we have to understand. Rate of dividend. Preference shareholders are paid dividend at a fixed rate, whereas equity share, the rate of dividend on equity share may vary year to year depending upon the profit earned by a company. Areas of dividend. Holders of cumulative preference shares can get the results of past dividend also, but equity shareholder cannot get the areas of past dividend. If you missed out, you missed out. Redeemability. Preference shareholders do not have the right to participate in the management of the company, but equity shareholders have. Preference shareholders do not have any voting right. Equity shares have that. Payment of dividend to preference shareholders. These shares have a preferential right to receive dividend before any dividend is paid to equity shares. And in equity shares, payment of dividend to equity shares is made only after paying to preference shares. Convertible, convertible. These shares are convertible. Preference shares are convertible, whereas equity shares are not convertible. Means those who have purchased preference shares, if their investment criteria increases or if they can invest more, they can always turn out as a equity shareholders, but equity shareholders cannot get converted to preference shareholders. Clear? Difference is clear, guys?
Yes, miss.
Okay, now let's understand the differences of shares and debentures. So first, ownership. The share of a company provides ownership to the shareholders. When you purchase a share, you are in a certain way are the owner of that company. But in debenture, the debenture holders provide loan. Thus, debenture holders are creators of a company. Form of return. The shareholders in shares gets the return in form of dividend, whereas in debenture they get in the form of interest. Return of in the form of interest. Shareholders as identity is known as shareholders, whereas in dividend, you can say debenture are known as debenture holders. Certainty of return. In shares, there is no certainty of return in case of loss. But in debenture, person holding a debenture is those are debenture holders. So the rate of interest is fixed and is to be paid even if there is no profit. You the company earns profit or does not earn profit, since you have promised prior that you provide certain amount of interest to the debenture holders, you have to give it. So those debenture holders have no way of like you can say they do not bother whether your company is earning profit or not. They are just interested to earn their interest promised by a company. And in shares can't be converted into debentures, but debentures can be converted into shares. Shareholders have the right to participate and vote in companies' meeting. That is on only on equity shares, not in preference shares. But when we say that a control is there in the shareholders to take a part in meeting, to oppose, and to choose. And in debenture holders do not possess any voting right and can't participate in the meetings. Priority of repayment in shareholders. Yes, the shareholders get the payment after the debenture holders are get, because debenture holders are the creditors to the company and they are supposed to receive it. So whenever any sort of illegal, you can say any sort of bankruptcy or losses or whatever it happens, when there are debentures, the company's first priority goes to the debentures, and in shares, the first priority goes to preference shares holders. Charge, the dividend is not deducted from taxable, whereas interest is deductible from taxable income. So these are the, you can say, basic differences between shares and debentures. Now, as I said, in shares, they say they issue IPO, FPO. So let's understand what is IPO. IPO is you can say it's just an initial public offering, the first sale of stock by a company to the public. Means a company can raise money by issuing either debt or equity. If the company has never issued equity to the public, it's known as an IPO. So IPOs are often issued by smaller, younger companies seeking capital to expand. The company who have never issued any sort of shares or debenture or is the first chance in the financial market, they begin from the initial phase that is known as IPO. Take an example. This like you can say you can see a IPO news, right, in the newspaper also, that certain company is trying to collect certain amount and they are selling out equity shares at a rate rupees 10 each, forecast a premium of 92 per share. So they,
LIC issuing IPO.
yes, that is IPO, initial public offering IPO. You can even take example mostly now. Recently, I guess LIC has opened for IPO, right?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
because the company I LIC has first time is trying to issue shares and has entered in financial market. So that is IPO. They are doing it, right? Clear? Now, what is FPO? Follow on public offer. Means it's a process by which a company which is already listed on the exchange issues new share to the investor or the existing shareholders, usually the promoters. FPO is used by companies to diversify their equity base. So over here, those who are already a part of financial market, and again they are bringing out new share in order to collect much more capital for their company, right? And they want to just diversify their equity base. That is known as FPO. You can, for example, NTPC company enters into the FPO. IPO, they were the IPOs is like the largest power generation company, NTPC, right? So they even entered in for the FPO. Firstly, they say issued IPO and then again they followed it in order to collect much more capital from market or from the general public. So that is FPO.
Ma'am, I have a doubt.
Yes, yes.
Ma'am, can we say that FPO essentially means, just a follow-up shares? Like if, for example, if a company already has issued an IPO and they are already
Mhm.
into the business and they are giving shares to the people so that they can buy them, that
Mhm.
company eventually also issue FPO so that they can enlarge their share stock
Share
for the
stock.
people to buy it.
Yes, exactly.
All right, ma'am. Now I understand.
Now you are clear, right? Your confusion is cleared.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, that is what my confusion is. I thought that FPO is a different type of IPO, but
No, no,
now
it's
I
not
understand
different.
it's not
It's
exactly.
not
Yeah,
different type
I
of
understand.
IPO. Okay. So in the conclusion, today we have understood what is shares, what are the different types of shares, how we can list in a financial market with the beginning stage, that is IPO, and again we can go on a follow up, that is FPO. What are the debentures, what are the advantages, what are the basic rights of shareholders and debenture holders, how the shareholders get their money or dividend, how debenture holders gets their interest, and what are the basic advantages and disadvantages, basic differences between both of them, right? Shares and debentures differences, and even in you learn that in the shareholder shares also in equity shares and preference shares differences, right? So I hope I was able to make you guys understand about the basic terminology, that is shares and debentures, the as per my knowledge and as far as my skill. I hope I was able to do that. I hope you guys were clear. Any doubt, guys?
Ma'am,
Anywhere? Yeah. Tilak,
ma'am,
yeah,
can you please
please.
explain a bit of if what is FPO once more? I'm just missing some points. That's why I'm a bit confused. IPO and with the FPO one. So
Uh, Clear who was talking? Apurva, you were there, right? Who asked me about FPOs, right?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, I was
Yeah,
there.
please,
I have.
yes, narrate it for Tilak. Let me understand.
Yeah. All right. So basically, Tilak, let us take it this way. As we know that initial public offering, that is IPO, is when a company is trying to get to public investments. So that public can buy the shares and then they can earn some sort of money from there as a security. So public will think that okay, we need to invest in this company and then we'll get some profits out of it. So FPO is basically a follow up in IPO, which means if a company wanted to expand their securities. For example, if a company has just issued 100 shares in the market and they wanted to make it 150, so that they'll then issue FPO so that they will make their stock of shares from 100 to 150 so that people can buy it. That is what FPO is basically.
Very good, Apurva. Very clear
okay, thank
understanding
you.
of
Thank you
yours.
very much.
Tilak, did you understood?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's just not that uh, tutor keeps on saying, even you guys have very good knowledge. And Apurva, hats off to you. You have a very good knowledge about this.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anything more? Anyone? So thank you so much once again getting associated, and let's meet in another session with different concepts of finance. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you everyone.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Amresh. Thank you, Gibson. Thank you, Shruti. Thank you, Trinil.